Congratulations on finishing up the fourth part of scope management in adaptive projects, and welcome to the fifth one. It is called sprint execution. What did you do so far? In the first part, you came up with scope culture. You build a good culture awareness in your team. In the second part, you captured and recorded stakeholders and customers' needs and expectations, and you finished up the second part with product vision. In the third part, you digged into product backlog. You broke down those high size or bigger size requirements into the smallest one, which are called user stories. And then you prioritized user stories and estimated the efforts. In the fourth part, you started the sprint. And in early hours of a sprint, you planned for that sprint. You had adaptive planning and capacity planning, and now you know on what user stories your team need to work on for the next 2 weeks and the next sprint. And here we go. We are in a sprint execution. Team will start. I don't want to explain. Guys, go through mini terms. There are 6 beautiful and very, very important mini terms that builds the foundation, pave the road for this part, are waiting for you. Do not skip it. Promise me you're not skipping the mini terms, and I'll see you in mini goal of this part of tutorial. Let's get it done, guys. Welcome to mini goal of sprint execution. Guys, in this stage, our sprint has started, okay? And we have devoted early hours of our sprint to sprint planning. We now know, okay, on what user stories our team will work on. Now, team starts working on that user stories. Team starts coding and then designing, testing, integrating. All of those technical tasks, all of those user stories are being built in this part of the tutorial, in this stage of scope management in adaptive projects. Now, let's read it, guys. Team designs, codes, tests, and integrates user stories to produce working increment. What is working increment? So we said that in adaptive projects, okay, we don't get the one final product at the end of the project, unlike predictive projects. No. Every 2 weeks, something needs to be produced and created, and that something is called increment, working increment. It could be like 2 features that are working in the mobile app, okay? And the stakeholders need to see those working features. This is called working increment. Now, using daily stand-up and task boards, they track progress, surface issues early, and adjust plans to stay aligned with the sprint goal. Scrum Master removes blocker and supports the team while PO stays available to clarity requirement. Guys, when we get to this stage of the project, the role of, okay, Scrum Master and, of course, development team now, they are shining. Development team is building, and Scrum Master needs to protect the team, needs to remove any blockers or issues that hinders the progress of the project, okay? So these are the things that we're gonna see in this part of the tutorial. But what concepts, terms we're gonna learn? We're gonna learn about frozen scope. We're gonna learn about invalid user stories, task board, daily stand-ups, churning, task switching, swarming, mobbing, pair programming. Wow, lots of cool and new terms and concepts. So we're gonna have lots of fun. Now, with your confidence, okay, let's continue and start our mini lessons for sprint execution, part of scope management in adaptive projects. Let's get it done. All right, let's start our mini lessons with the first concept, frozen scope. Guys, remember in part 1, we talked about the scope culture. We said when the sprint begins, okay, now that sprint backlog, that list of user stories that we're going to do in this sprint is frozen. I mean, if any changes comes in from the stakeholder, we respectfully sit down with the stakeholder, like PO sit down with the stakeholder, but we add it to product backlog for future sprints, not this sprint, okay? This is the concept of frozen scope. Once the sprint starts, okay, the list of works, sprint backlog, is frozen. There wouldn't be any changes in that list. This is called frozen scope. This is just made up concept by me. Okay, I just wanted to share the concept with you. Okay, the frozen scope is just like that sprint backlog, guys, that we created in the previous part is a mini scope statement. Remember, in scope statement was frozen document. We cannot change the scope statement unless through formal channels. Same thing is for here, for sprint backlog. It is frozen document. Once the sprint starts, no changes to a sprint backlog. There are very, very few cases, rare cases, that if all the team agrees, okay, they could add a user story that is aligned with sprint goal and is very, very critical. But rule of thumb, and 99% of the scenarios show us that the sprint backlog is frozen. No change to it. Okay, just consider this concept for your questions. Please feel free to read the example. The next concept in sprint execution while team is building and coding is invalid user stories. Guys, sometimes one or some of the user stories for that sprint becomes invalid. What do I mean by invalid? I mean, team does not need to build and code that user stories anymore. Why? Because, for example, stakeholder changed his mind, doesn't need that feature or user stories, or one new policy is coming and that user story is now invalid and worthless, doesn't have any value, doesn't add any value creating that user story. So these scenarios are called invalid user stories. And how should we deal with invalid user story? Development team, okay, need to sit down with PO, product owner, because product owner is owner of product backlog and user stories are for product backlog. Now, development team meets with PO, and if PO confirms that, okay, this user story is invalid, then development team can remove that user story from their sprint backlog. And PO, of course, could remove it from product backlog. Okay, this is how we deal with invalid user story. Let's have an example because this is very rare case. Guys, for example, we have a user story called, as a patient, I want to upload my insurance card during appointment booking so the hospital can pre-verify coverage. Now, team, okay, for Hospital Mobile App project has started working on this user story in this sprint. Now, what happens mid-sprint? For example, halfway through the sprint, the hospital's insurance verification process changes. New policy comes in. Okay? Now, how it affects sprint execution. Guys, for example, hospitals sign a deal with an external insurance provider, and the provider now auto-verifies coverage through an API, and uploading cards is no longer needed. Okay, so the initial goal was making a feature that patients could upload their insurance card. Now it is invalid. We don't need it. Now, development team sits down with the PO, and PO confirms, yes, there has been a policy change, new procedures. So this user story is invalid. I allow you to remove it from sprint backlog, and I will remove it from product backlog. Okay. And these are very rare cases, guys. We won't see them a lot. The third concept that you're going to see in a sprint execution is task board. Remember in part 1, we talked about scope transparency. Guys, everybody, the Scrum Master, product owner, customer, all other team members need to know, okay, what is going on with sprints? What tasks? Because we said, sometimes user stories are broken down into tasks, okay? Everybody needs to know, okay, what tasks are in progress? What tasks hasn't been started? What tasks are being tested? What tasks are blocked? What tasks are done? Okay, so in general, we use project management softwares, and we update that software so everybody could see what is going on. And this concept is called task board, guys, okay? So task board is just a board, a table that shows, okay, for example, to do, what tasks need to be done, hasn't been started. In progress tasks, it shows block tasks, testing tasks done. So it shows, taskbar shows the status of tasks that need to be done for that sprint, okay? Taskboard helps for transparency, guys. Awesome. This was very good 3 concepts that you need to know when the team starts building the product. Now, before we continue mini lessons, let's get a mini question done, because I think we need a mini question. You need to see, okay, what type of question you may get on your PMP exam about these concepts. Together, let's get it done. Let's get this mini question done. You are a project manager supporting an agile team in the middle of a sprint when a key stakeholder requests adding a new feature as soon as possible. The work is not refined, not estimated, and was never discussed during a sprint planning. The team is already committed to the current sprint goal, but leadership suggests just feeding it in if possible. What should you do? A, let the team add the new item if they believe it is small enough not to affect the sprint goal. B, ask the product owner to adjust the sprint backlog immediately to include the item. C, facilitate a discussion between the stakeholder and product owner so the request can be clarified and added to the backlog for future sprints. D, restart the sprint planning session to incorporate the new request. I think you've got the right option just immediately because you know scope culture in adaptive projects. How do we handle scope changes? Guys, once the sprint starts, 99.99% of the time, the sprint backlog will be frozen. Okay, it is hard to get into that sprint backlog. So we facilitate a meeting, meet, identify the problem, analyze it, and take action. Okay, so we always facilitate a meeting between stakeholders and product owner, because product owner is owner of product backlog, owner of all of the scopes. These two sits, product owner capture the needs and add it to product backlog to be worked on for future sprints. We do not need to disturb or disrupt this current sprint. This is the rule, guys. Okay, so that's why option C is the best option. Why other options are incorrect? Option A, let the team add the new item if they believe. There is no such a thing as believe. And there's no, and we don't disrupt it. And guys, this new feature has nothing to do with the sprint goal. In that rare cases, 0.0001% of the time that we add user stories for this current sprint, the new user story should be definitely aligned with the sprint goal, add value to sprint goal. But stakeholders' request has nothing to do with sprint goal. So we will definitely postpone it and do not focus on it in this sprint. Option B says ask the PO to adjust the sprint backlog. Guys, sprint backlog is for development team. PO does not adjust anything. Number 1. Number 2, no, we don't handle the scope changes in this way. No. Option C is the best option. Option D, restart the sprint planning session to incorporate the new request. We are mid-sprint. We go to day 1 again. This is nonsense. No. Once sprint planning is done, it is done. Okay? Stakeholders can wait for a week so we could start the next sprint planning for the second sprint. This is the mindset that you need to know how to handle scope changes in adaptive projects. Now, a question from you. Do adaptive team members, those development teams, testers, developers, designers, meet with each other? Of course they meet, and they meet a lot. Now, in the next mini lesson, let's dig into daily stand-ups. What are daily stand-ups? Let's get it done. Now, let's continue our mini lessons. Do development team meet each other? Oh yeah, they meet a lot. They meet every day. They meet every day for 15 minutes. And this ceremony, this meeting is called Daily Stand-Ups. Guys, development team stand up. I mean, they're not literally standing up, but it's a quick meeting, 15 minutes meeting. In that 15 minutes, every team member tells 3 things, have 3 sentences. What did I do yesterday? What will I do today? And what is blocking me? These three statements. Every team member come up with these three statements. Now, how daily stand-ups help us to execute the adaptive project, execute those scopes in the sprint backlog better. Guys, number one benefit is accountability. For example, guys, if someone is stuck for 2 days, it is caught immediately rather than discovering late that planned scope can't be delivered. So we caught those lazy development teams early because we're meeting every day, okay? There should be a progress because that statements of what did I do yesterday, what will I do today, and what is blocking me need to change every day. If it is not changing, something is wrong. Somebody is working from home and is not working, chilling, not working. So you can nurture the accountability. The second benefit is alignment. Guys, if in that three statements, okay, for example, a team member says that they are working on something that has nothing to do with a sprint goal, you cut it early. You may say, hey, this task that you're working has nothing to do with the sprint goal. Do not work on that task. You coach and guide, guys. You as a Scrum Master, your role is to know, okay, everybody is aligned, and daily stand-ups help you to catch those misalignment and then take corrective actions. The last benefit is blockers. Guys, the third statement is what is blocking me. Every team member, okay, if they stuck on a task, on a user story, and something is blocking, for example, that user story is dependent on one license, on license key, on one design, something is blocking them, okay? They need a software they don't have, something is blocking. They need to surface that block. They need to mention and share, okay, what is blocking me? And Scrum Master's role is removing that blockage. Removing blockers are one of the main roles of Scrum Masters and project managers. Okay. For example, guys, the development team says the scheduling API keeps failing. Now, the tester may say, without it, we can't confirm bookings. Now, team immediately gather together to fix API that day, and it will remove the blocker. Great. Now, let's have a mini question about daily stand-ups. What type of question you may see about daily stand-ups? Because this is one of the most important ceremonies or events we have in adaptive projects. Let's get it done. All right, let's get this mini question done. You are a Scrum Master running a daily stand-up. A team member reports a blocker. They cannot proceed because they are waiting for information from an external group. The team begins diving into the solutions. The product owner suggests discussing it right now to save time. And another developer says blockers should always be solved inside the stand-up. The conversation is growing longer and the time box is about to be exceeded. What should you do? A, allow the team to continue discussing the issue during the stand-up so it gets resolved immediately. B, note the blocker and the stand-up on time and take responsibility for coordinating with the right parties afterward to remove impediments. C, ask the product owner to handle the blocker since the request involves communications with external stakeholders. D, let the team finish the discussion even if the stand-up runs long since the issue affects sprint progress. Great question. And it touches the discipline, your discipline and your role. Guys, we said adaptive projects are flexible, and in that flexibility, we still have some structure. And for example, sprint length, that 2 week or 1 week or 4 weeks length is one of the structures. When there is an issue and problems, we don't extend the sprint length. Same thing goes for daily stand-ups. Guys, it is 15 minutes talk, okay? If you agreed in the early days of the project, if you agreed on 15 minutes talk, it is 15 minutes talk, okay? Not more than that. And those three statements should be mentioned. Daily stand-up is the place to mention blockers. We don't go for solutions there. No, mention the blockers. And remember, guys, one of the main duties of Scrum Master is removing blockers or removing impediments. Same thing, same concept, okay? So the best option here is option B. Note the blocker and the stand up on time to have the discipline, because if you do it once, if you allow the team to discuss once, it'll happen again. So you are Scrum Master, you need to take care of this situation by discipline, by saying, okay, this is time box ceremony. Let's not exceed it, okay? And take responsibility for coordinating. Guys, as I told you before, product owner is not responsible for blocker remover. Team development is developing, building, coding, testing, integrating, designing, okay? But when there is blockers, when the development team faces an issue, you are responsible to remove that issue and blocker. So taking responsibility is a very key term here in option B. Why other options are incorrect? Option A, allow the team to continue discussing the issue. No. We don't allow the team to, we don't solve issues in daily stand-ups. Just 3 statements. What did I do yesterday? Short statement. What will I do today? And what is blocking me? Short statement. Each team member come up with short statement. We don't discuss further than this. Option B is the correct one. Option C, ask the product owner to handle the blocker. First of all, you don't give away your task. Question is asking for your role, not product owner's role. You're being lazy here with option C. You are giving away your responsibility. And product owner is not responsible. Product owner is owner of backlog, guys. Any issue with backlog, yeah, you can talk with product owner, facilitates a meeting with product owner. But these issues during sprint execution need to be taken care of by you as a Scrum Master or project manager. Option D, let the team finish the discussion even if the stand-up runs long. No, option D is almost same as option A. We don't allow the stand-up to exceed the time box, agreed time box actually. So let's read the description. Option B keeps the daily stand-up time box and focused on synchronization, not problem solving, which is correct. This ceremony is not about problem solving. It is just about alignment. Option B reflects the Scrum Master's core responsibility, removing impediments outside the stand-up. It protects team flow and aligns with Agile practice guide. Awesome. And feel free to read the rest of the description. Now, guys, while team is building, while team is developing, designing, integrating, testing, there are some issues, okay, like blockers, but not blockers, some fundamental issues that you as a Scrum Master and project manager, you need to know about those issues. And when you notice those issues, when you notice that your team members are doing that, you need to coach and guide them. What are those issues? Let's get it done, guys. All right, let's continue our mini lessons. Guys, here in this mini lesson, your role as a Scrum Master or project manager is very, very important. So while team is performing the job, you as a Scrum Master, you monitor and control, okay, how is everybody is doing. Now, there are two issues that may happen, okay? These are very connected and almost same. Number one is task switching. If you notice one of the team members, okay, which are responsible for several tasks, are switching tasks like regularly without finishing the first one, it goes to the second one and then goes back to the first one, okay? The task switching, the concept, the problem of task switching reduces the efficiency, guys. Your role is meeting with that team member, with that team member, identify the problem. Okay, why do you task switch a lot? Analyze the impact together. You could say, hey, if you do task switching a lot, it will impact your performance. Okay, it will decrease your performance by 70%, for example. And take action. You know what? Let's not task switch. So task switching means it is self-explanatory. I don't want to dig in. One team member switch between tasks without completing one task. Okay? So you need to coach your team about task switching. The next one is churning. Guys, churning is a broader term. Churning means the team keeps working, but they are working hard, but they are not delivering value, okay? For example, there are 5 user stories that need to be done in this sprint. In the early days of a sprint, they start all of those 5 sprints. But at the end of the sprint, so they need to deliver value. They need to come up with working increment, but they don't. They, for example, progress on all of them, like 70% on user story 1, 60% on user story 2, 50% on users. So they are not finishing up one user story. This is called churning. Okay, sounds like team is working really hard, but they need guidance. They need coaching. You need to make sure your team, okay, avoids churning. You need to teach and educate and coach your team about, okay, hey guys, finish up the highest important user story, then go to the second user story. So finish up one thing and then go to the next one, okay? Do not just partially finish anything, okay? So guys, remember, in adaptive projects, in predictive projects, whenever you see and face a problem, meet with that person, identify the problem, analyze the impact on the project, and take corrective action to resolve that problem. These are two problems and concepts that you as a Scrum Master, you need to know. Now, let's see what type of question you may get from these issues in sprint execution. Let's get it done, guys. All right, let's get this mini question done. You are a Scrum Master for an Agile team. Mid-sprint, you noticed one team member frequently jumping between several user stories, leaving multiple items half done. Other team members are hesitant to intervene because they do not want to appear controlling. What a nice guys. The product owner is frustrated because progress on key items is stalled, yet the team member insists they are being flexible. This pattern is starting to affect the sprint goal. What should you do first? A. Bring it up in the next retrospective and let the team collectively decide how to address task switching. B. Ask the product owner to prioritize more items so the team member has more choices about what to work on. C. Reassign the team member's tasks to someone else who's more disciplined in following workflow practices. And D. Meet privately with the team member to coach them, understand what is causing the churn, help them focus on finishing one item at a time. Good question, good question. What's the problem, guys? So, team is executing, building, coding, testing. One team member is doing task switching or churning, okay? Like, is not finishing user story and then going to the next one. No, just making and leaving one user story or task half done, partially done. And what's your job as a Scrum Master? Let's go through the options. Option A, bring it up in the next retrospective. Guys, whenever there is a problem, okay, if there is a problem with one individual, you need to see that individual, okay? You don't humiliate, that's a hard word, humiliate the individual in the group meeting, in retrospective or daily stand-ups. No, you meet with that person privately. If it's a group problem, yeah, retrospective is a great option, okay? If the if the churning is for all the group, retrospective is a wonderful option. But since it is just one individual, one team member, meet privately, not retrospective. Option B, ask the product owner to prioritize more items so the team member has more choices. Guys, development team agreed on some sprint backlog, okay? Some user stories are in a sprint backlog, and based on the skill, expertise of that team member self-organized and chooses tasks. Product owner has nothing to do here. Once the sprint starts, product owner has nothing to do with this sprint. So option B does not make sense. Option C, reassign the team member's tasks to someone else who's more disciplined. Like, what about that team member? You need to fire that team member? You want to put pressure on one disciplined team member, one experienced one? No, you need to coach that team member with a problem, with the issue. Okay? So this is why we have project managers and Scrum Masters in projects, guys. It's your role. You need to coach, educate, guide. That poor person needs guidance from you. Okay? And if after guidance, after coaching, that person does not change, just kick his ass and fire him because you did your best. Okay, so I hope option B is the best option. Meet privately, yeah, with the team member to coach them, understand what is causing. So meet, guys, meet, identify the problem, understand the problem, and help the team focus on finishing one item at a time. So it has the take action part. It does not have the analyze impact part, but option D has 3 of those meet, and it's the best option to resolve the issues. Guys, feel free to read the description. I think we have covered enough. Now, let's continue. I do have a question. Are they sometimes a challenging user stories, a challenging tasks? Like, not always sprint execution goes as normal, like very smoothly. No, sometimes there are challenging tasks, challenging user stories that team members cannot do it alone. What happens then? What should you do as a Scrum Master? Let's dig in. All right, let's continue our mini lessons with swarming. Guys, sometimes some of user stories are unclear, are complex. In these scenarios, all team members swarm on that user stories. What do I mean? Swarming means all of the team members work on that user story. So whatever the teams are working, they stop it, okay, and focus on that specific user story. That user story is the most important and has the highest priority. So teams swarm, okay, and all work on that user story to, for example, break it down into smaller tasks so they could be able to do it, or anything. If it is unclear, they ask PO to help them. So for unclear and complex user stories, we use swarming. The next one is mobbing. Almost same concept. But in mobbing, guys, all team members will be at the same time on the same computer. Like 10 people will be watching, will be on the same screen, on the same computer. Will code together. Okay, and then there will be lots of brainstorming and generating ideas. We'll review the code together. We'll design code together. We'll integrate tests together on complex stuff, on complex user stories. Okay, so in swarming, we weren't on the same screen. No, I mean, everybody was responsible for that user story, but separately. They were working separately, but on one single user story. But in mobbing, everybody is on the same screen. Okay, they do everything together. And the last technique, I better say, that in a sprint execution, some Scrum Masters suggest is pair programming. What is pair programming? 2 people on same screen, guys. Okay, so one person, developer A, writes the code, developer B reviews the code. And then for the next code, the roles will switch. Developer B now writes the code, developer A reviews the code. Pair programming, when you have 2 person on one task, the quality of that coding or testing, whatever the task is, will increase. Okay, this is called pair programming, and this is a baby of maybe mobbing. Okay, awesome. Now, what type of questions you may get from swarming, mobbing, pair programming? Guys, you will get a question from these 3 concepts. So whenever there is a complex user story, unclear user stories, we use one of these approaches or techniques to clarify that user story, to make it doable in sprint execution. Let's see what type of question you may get. Let's get it done together. All right, let's get this mini question done. You are a project manager of an agile team approaching the midpoint of a sprint. One critical user story is stuck in progress because the team member working on it is struggling with an unexpected complexity. Despite asking for help informally, no one has stepped in because everyone is busy with their own tasks. Stand-up updates show that several items are half done. The PO is worried that the sprint goal is at risk. The team seems hesitant to abandon their individual tasks. What should you do as a Scrum Master? A. Ask the PO, product owner, to replace the blocked story with a simpler one so the team can still meet the sprint goal. B. Reassign the story to a senior team member who can completed faster than the rest. C, extend the sprint length to give the struggling team member more time to finish without interrupting others. D, encourage the team to swarm the blocked story so they can collectively complete it and protect the sprint goal. Very good question, and I think you got the right option. The right option is D, guys. What's the problem? Everybody is doing their job, building, coding, integrating, testing. One team member is stuck. There is a complex user story. When there is complexity, when there is unclarity, what do? We swarm, mob, or pair program. One of these, guys. That's why option D is the best option. Why A is incorrect? A says, ask the PO to replace the blocked story with a simplified one. This is not the way we handle challenges, guys. So, sprint backlog and sprint goal are identified in a sprint planning. Okay, mid-sprint, when we face a challenge, when a team faces a problem, PO cannot replace user stories, guys. No, we need to build that listed user stories in a sprint backlog. PO cannot replace user stories and change that frozen scope. This is not the way we handle challenges. Option B says, reassign the story to senior team members who can complete it. Guys, everybody is busy with their job. And putting pressure on one senior team member is not a cool idea, not a good one. Okay? You need to... so what do you want to do with the current team member then? So every time that current team member faces a problem, you want to assign the tasks to senior team members? You're making that team member lazy. No, this is not the way we handle this challenge. Option C, extend the sprint length. We never extend. We have discipline and we have fixed time box. We don't extend that. No. But option D, encourage the team to swarm the blocked user story. Guys, it has one of those three approaches we use when we face complexities, story complexity. Okay? That's why D is the best option. Please feel free to read the description. Now, I want you to go through mini FAQs. I have added some extra points about scope management in adaptive projects for sprint execution part. Please go review the questions and answers, and I'll see you in mini summary. Let's get it done. All right. Scope management in adaptive projects. What part? Sprint execution. Welcome to mini summary. What did we do? Our team started designing, coding, testing, integrating, started building the product. Now, while team is building the product, we need to make sure everybody knows some concepts. Like what? Like frozen scope. Guys, once the team starts the sprint backlog will be frozen, locked. We wouldn't change that sprint backlog, and the team tries to meet the sprint goal. The other concept is invalid user stories. In some rare cases, one of the user stories or some of them would be invalid, worthless. Okay, so doing that user story wouldn't add any value. In what scenarios this may happen? When there's a new policy, new procedures, or stakeholders need change. They don't want that user story or feature anymore. Okay. In these cases, those user stories are called invalid user stories. How you handle them? You meet with PO, and PO will understand the situation, and PO will remove it from product backlog, and you remove it from sprint backlog. These two concepts. And while team is performing the job, executing the scope of the project, they need to use task board. Task board is a board in software in project management software that has different columns. For example, it shows what tasks are in progress, what tasks haven't been started, what tasks are in design stage, in review stage. It shows the status of all tasks. So everybody in the project, stakeholders, PO, Scrum Master, and all team members know what is going on. And guys, the most important ceremony in sprint executions while team is performing in the sprint is daily stand-ups. Daily stand-up is a 15-minute meeting. Okay, in this stand-up, in this ceremony, every team member has 3 statements. Number 1, what did I do yesterday? Number 2, what will I do today? Number 3, what is blocking me? Okay, so everybody talks about these three statements. And when there is a blocker, okay, when there are something that blocks the progress of the project, Scrum Master is the responsible person to remove those blockers. This is about daily stand-ups. And guys, remember, while team is performing the job, there may be some issues that you need to notice. Like what? Like task switching and churning. What is task switching? One team member, okay, switch between tasks. Like before completing task A, that team member goes to task B. Now, this task switching affects the efficiency of that team member highly. So a project manager should apply MEAT, meet with that team member and explain, identify the problem and explain, hey, avoid task switching. And churning is the same thing, guys. Churning means, okay, team member looks like they are working hard, but they are not delivering. They started all user stories at the same time, but at the end of the sprint, for example, user story A is 70% complete, B is 60% complete. So nothing is actually completed. So you need to educate your team and coach your team about avoiding churning. And guys, there are some scenarios and times in the project that team faces unclear user stories or complex user stories. In these scenarios, you apply swarming, mobbing, or pair programming. What is swarming? Swarming means everybody stops whatever they are working on and focus on that user story. Okay. Mobbing is every team member will be on the same system at the same time, and they will write the code together, test the code together, debug the code together. So everything happens at the same time in one system. This is mobbing. And the other one is pair programming. Pair programming is we have two developers. Developer A writes the code, developer B review the code, and then for the next code the roles will switch. Developer B now writes the code, developer A reviews the code. This improves the efficiency, the quality of the work. And guys, remember, while we were in the sprint execution, we had one principle in mind as a Scrum Master and project manager. That principle is working software is the primary measure of progress. Okay, we don't care if user story A is 70% complete. No, it is not working, so it hasn't add value, so we didn't deliver anything. Okay, stakeholders care about working software, not completion, percentage of completion. So working software in adaptive projects is the primary measure of success or progress. Awesome. This was a very, very good part for scope management in adaptive projects. You have tiny little tasks remaining. Go crush the next question. It is only one question. Go crush it, and I'll see you in the next part of scope management in adaptive projects. Thanks for continuing. I'm proud of you, and let's continue.